Hello and welcome, Nathan and Reasmey from Sydney. How you going?
Yeah,
Good.
we're great.
Yeah.
Great to be here. Thanks for having us.
Nice to
Yeah,
catch up.
thanks a lot for coming. Like I haven't seen you guys since I was in Sydney earlier this year, and the last time before then was Asia Open. So I had a really good time with you guys. I was chatting to someone about it recently about at Asia Open. We found ourselves in the same little corner of the dance floor for a while. I do have an apology to give you first, right at the beginning. I'll get it out of the way because I had a lesson with Max Once that weekend, and I was on my own. I didn't. My dance partner didn't come to that. Uh, he was double booked, so I didn't get to take any notes. And we were talking about the momentum and the collection method that Max Once uses. And when I shared it with you, I totally gave you the wrong information because I'd misunderstood it. And so I remember the looks of confusion on both of your faces, like, I don't really know what's going on here. Anyway, I have since figured it out because Delina was in Perth for a recent event and she happened to be showing me something random. And I was like, hang on a minute. And I said to her, I think this is actually what Max Lance does in the collection method. And so I did it with her. And she's like, yeah, that's it. So 6 months later, I figured out what that missing piece was. So next time we catch up, I will share it with you.
Nice. I look forward to it.
Yeah. So if you've just joined us on this podcast, the theme is partnership or teamwork. And I kind of wanted to explore one of the fundamental skills of West Coast Swing is that partnership with two of my favorites from Australia, both advanced dancers and very, very close to getting out of that division. Yeah, like you're like 2 points or something, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So close.
Really there.
While I was looking at points, by the way, Rez, I noticed that you have more wins than Nathan in advanced. Do you ever rub that in? I think you've got like, I don't know, 5 or 6 wins or something. Nathan's like got 3 or 4, something like that.
Oh,
So I thought even if he manages to beat you out of the advanced division, you can still say, well, at least you've won more than he did.
I'll hold him to that. I'll hold that.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, you're doing a lot, right? You teach, you're a couple, you dance together, you do routines, you help others do routines, you organize when you can. I believe you get one of the champions from Queensland to come down to Sydney and do workshops, and also you take private lessons there. Plus you travel to events and you compete and you dance socially. Like you do it all in the West Coast Swing world as partners, not only as sort of partners being together, but also as dance partners. What's that like?
It's busy. But I feel like we wouldn't do it if we didn't love doing it. We really enjoy the community, the dancing, all the experiences that we're lucky enough to have had so far and will have in the future. All of it brings us a lot of joy and satisfaction. So I don't know, it doesn't feel as much like work at times.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun and getting to travel around Australia and internationally and meet people and have fun dances and learn new things is such a privilege that we're really grateful for.
Yeah. So on that then, I did want to chat to you a little bit about the partnership throughout all of those things. But before we do, you guys both lead and follow. So you both compete also in the division underneath you in the alternate role, underneath your main or primary role. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about that. Before we dive into partnership, I wanted to ask you a bit about the mindset of a leader and a follower and kind of how you view those roles maybe differently or what their responsibility is in the partnership. And whether there's sort of any distinctions when you switch between one and the other that you think is worth sort of sharing.
You want to take this one? Or?
Yeah, I'll start
Yeah,
off.
go for it.
So I think the really short answer is for me, I don't make a big distinction between the two roles. For me, they're both dancing. They're both about working with the person you're dancing with to create something together, to create this dance, to have fun. So I don't necessarily go into a dance thinking, okay, I'm leading, I need to do X, Y, and Z, or okay, I'm following, I need to do these things. Instead, I think about the person I'm dancing with and, okay, what are they doing? How can I contribute? How can we work together to make this dance successful and fun for both of us?
That's
Yeah.
not what I expected. Totally
Um,
not what I expected, but like a great answer. I've got questions on that.
Yeah.
Rez, would you say it's similar? Do you kind of have that similar kind of mindset?
yeah, mine's a little bit less formal, I think. Um, my only mindset that I take, not like to any dance that I have, is how can I make this dance the best dance possible in this moment?
Yeah.
So I am thinking, or whoever I decide to dance with, what's in my toolkit that I can use and bring out to make this the best dance it can be, and how can I adapt it if my particular guess wasn't quite right. So I'm always challenging myself to make it even better as I'm dancing.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
regardless of role, I'm just trying to make it the best dance possible with the tools that I have at that time.
The cool thing about that is like the mindset is that you're with the person you're with. Like in that moment is that you're saying, let's work together to achieve whatever. I really love that because I think and I'm gonna need you to cast your mind back because you guys have been dancing West Coast for like 15 years or something. It's been,
Not quite that long. I think it's like 10 or 11.
is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's just say way more than me, right? So, but if you can remember like what it was like, let's say 6, 7 years ago, when I don't even know that you were dancing the alternate roles back then, like whether that was as common. But in your primary role, I think a lot of us are kind of like working through our own skill sets. Like, what are we supposed to be doing? You know, as a leader, for example, I'm supposed to be listening to the music, trying to set up a phrase change, trying to lead and prep my partner and be with them. And when you first start, it's like I don't want to lead another left side pass or another sugar push or whatever. Like you've got all this other noise, let's say, and then as you evolve, you kind of get to that state of let's say paying more attention to your partner because you realize, okay, it's not just about what I'm doing, it's how they're responding. And the same would be true for following. The following is like when you very first learn, you're like, oh, I wait for my leader and whatever they're leading, that's what I'm doing. And then at some point you're like, well, there's space between this movement that I can now do things and shape and then later on evolve and figure out how to influence and that sort of thing. So that's why I asked that question as well. Like, what is it in the partnership that may be a different mindset when you're leading? Like, if you're thinking about phrase changes and setting things up, and then as a follower, are you always just in that mode of, I'm going to let them trust them to set this up? Or, what do you do? How do you think when you're dancing?
I'll go. So I think the journey still continues for both roles. As a follower, I just feel more comfortable making decisions. I don't have to be as like mentally active in terms of how I react in the dance. In my secondary role as a leader, though, I I'm at a different experience level. So my mental capacity is definitely smaller, but I try and use the knowledge that I have in that secondary role still the same way as I do in my primary role. So having that knowledge from the other role helps kind of get me a little bit further in the opposite role because I'm aware of what they're trying to achieve. So
Right.
as a newer leader, I'm aware that my followers can contribute and I should be, listening and responsive, and they can actually give me a lot of ideas and can help me through the dance where I'm kind of lacking in that space. So having that awareness helps a lot, but also just acknowledging like you don't have to be perfect, like in either role. You just make the best of it.
Right.
Yeah, I might add to that. So I think a lot of the decisions I make as a leader are based on what I'm hearing in the music, but also about where my partner is at the time and what they're wanting to contribute to the dance. So I'll have a plan, but it's a very flexible plan that's always adaptable to the moment. And it also adapts based on the experience level of my partner. So some people that I dance with might be newer to the dance and they only know the basics, and so I might choose to do more myself. Maybe incorporate more footwork, and I'll add variation in what I'm doing in my body, but I'm not going to expect that from my partner. Whereas when I'm dancing with more experienced partners, we can create something together, and they can influence and contribute, and we can work together in that way.
You mentioned a word in that which you talk about having a plan.
Here's the plan.
A plan. Let me put on my slightly larger glasses. Okay, hit me.
As a leader, when you, in reference to that, and I know it may be different for competitions and social, but when you say you have a plan, is your plan sort of only, oh, I'm going to lead a whip now, and then it might turn into a whip with an outside turn, for example? Is that the level of plan? Or is the plan that you're talking about, we just hit the phrase change, there's 32 counts, I'm going to do that, and then face the judges and like do something cool this way? Like when you say plan, because this is a longer conversation for another time, but I just want to get some clarity on it.
Yeah, for me, the plan is much shorter.
Yeah, you know what? I shouldn't have used the word plan. I've clearly gotten you overexcited.
Would scheme be a better word? Although that's just as exciting. I might even need these.
At one stage in my dancing many years ago, maybe I would have tried to plan 32 counts ahead, but it's just not realistic. I think with the level of dancers that I'm dancing with that want to be able to influence and talk, I know that I can have a dream that maybe we'll hit this phrase change in a certain way, and I can try and achieve that dream. But at the end of the day, usually I'm only thinking 2 counts ahead.
Yes, I can see why you didn't want to use the word plan.
Of, okay, I'm going to start to lead a whip now. All right, we're going to continue to lead this whip. We're going to continue to lead this whip. Oh, okay, now the plan's changed. My follower wants to hit something in the music before we end this whip. And so, yeah, usually it's not more than 2 counts ahead. But at the same time, somewhere else in my brain, I'm thinking, okay, this next phrase change, how's it going to hit? Maybe I have enough mental capacity to think through that. Maybe I know the song really well and I already know what's going to happen. And so I can also try and think through how I'd like to hit that next phrase change. But a lot of that is going to depend on where we are in space at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. It's an interesting one because I've had people tell me have a plan, and then I've been told the complete opposite. And these are by champions. Like someone's like, yeah, have a plan. Like they didn't say 32 counts, but they're saying 16. Like have the 16 count plan to do this. And then the other coach then said, but the problem is if something changes within the plan, then your mind goes, what am I doing now? And then it's like, you shouldn't have had the plan. You should just roll with it. So I was interested to hear what you say about that. Um, that's actually really good. I think the idea that you're talking about contributing and that partnership, that sort of leads perfectly into these next series of questions. So, um, I think I would like to start with saying, like, as you've grown, like, are there any things that, and I'll just get you to answer this from your primary role as a leader, Nathan, and Rez as a follow. Um, are there things that you've noticed in the partnership that you've changed, like sort of milestones or different things that you've kind of become aware of at different times in your growth that you're like now think about it differently than how you may have previously?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think actually most of them probably happened in the last 3, 4 years when we, post COVID, we're like, we really miss dance and we want to do more of it. And we just kind of went full in. Um, the key thing that changed for us, it wasn't the first time we had done this, but this was like, no, we're actually taking this process seriously, is when we decided to do a routine, a classic routine. And actually have a goal of like taking that somewhere and performing it like at the open. So that kind of triggered this whole other stage of our dancing that we'd only kind of dabbled in. I mean, we did modern jive or rock for a number of years. We did routines there as well, but this was a different level of intensity that we committed to. And that was where we found the most like personal growth, the most dance growth, learning about ourselves as dancers and as people as well, and just having that whole other element. That's the biggest thing I think that's changed over time.
When you say it was during the routine, what would have been something that you took away from the partnership itself? Like, how am I dancing in partnership? By the way, was this the routine where you had us like 8 counts of Balboa?
Oh, this was the one after. So the one that had the bow in it, that was kind of like, oh, we want to do this and learn and push ourselves, but there's no kind of like weight on it. We're just doing it for fun, performing
Right.
it, doing it because we enjoy it.
So it's the one after that routine.
One
Yeah.
after that was the one we're kind of like, oh, okay, we actually want to showcase this to not
And
just friends and family at home.
yeah. I feel
Yeah.
like you did that at South by Southwest. Is that the one? Was it South by Southwest or one in
Oh,
Texas somewhere?
well, DCSX.
DCSX.
Yeah.
DCSX. That's it.
Yeah.
It was that routine?
Yes.
Yeah. Cool. So Riz, what would be the things that you said like you kind of discovered in that time?
We learned about how much we love this dance. I think there's I feel like routine partnerships, you kind of like make or break relationships, and it's kind of like survival of the fittest, right? You take it very seriously, but at the end of the day, if you both remember that it's just dancing, that kind of
Just dancing. I'm going to bleep that part out.
Throughout the process, I constantly had to check in with myself and be like, I'm doing this because I love dancing. And no matter what challenges you face during the process, because there's a lot of them, just think about, why you're doing it. Going back to, okay, why did I do this in the first place? Oh, because I like dancing. And that kind of brings me back around and resets the mind a little bit. And it's like, okay, no, this is worth it. I want to work on this. Makes it more enjoyable.
Yeah, I think routines can tell you a lot about the partnership. It can tell you how someone likes to learn. It can tell you a lot about the choices that people like to make, about work ethic, about their dedication, and making sure that you're on the same page. I think that's really important, is to find someone, if you want to find a dance practice partner, to find someone who has the same goals as you. I would say like routines really helped us push our dancing a lot. That like repetition, the ability to go over technique and execution until you get it as close to perfect as you can. It's a really great experience, but a lot of work at the same time. I think the other thing for me is I learned that a lot of the dancing I did when I was at the lower levels and when I was newer to the dance, I hadn't had that opportunity to travel overseas and see all these other amazing dancers. And so at the time, I thought that there was only one way to do West Coast swing. It wasn't until later in my journey that I realized there's so many different ways we can do this dance. Everyone brings something a bit different to it. And it's more about what we can achieve together rather than just a leader executing patterns and the follower going along with it. I think for me, that was a big learning as I went through this journey.
That's an interesting subject because I'm going to dive into that and go there because you opened the door, right? My experience at Asia Open this year was that they are doing something completely different to what is happening where I live. Like the Singaporean and the Malaysian dancers in particular. And I thought, whatever is going on with how they're thinking about this dance is totally foreign to me. It totally threw me actually on the competition floor because I was like, I can't work out what is actually happening. It was only later on reflection that I could kind of understand. Oh, right, and also talking to Martin, who's moved to Perth from Singapore. Like, what is it that they're doing over there? Like, what's the mindset and all the rest? And he told me how the playfulness and the fun and the musicality is like heavily emphasized. Whereas where I am, it's pattern after pattern after pattern. And our dance level, if you like, is lower. And so a follower, most of the followers that I dance with expect me to lead. They don't embellish much or say influence. You mentioned Reasmey and that kind of thing. And so, but in Singapore and Malaysia, totally different story. It's like give them an opening and let them run with it, then adapt, which is very, very different. And even when I try that here, it's like the results are, if I leave openings, it's like it's rarely taken. So I think that's a challenge. But how do you find, like, if you just go down that mindset for a little while, how do you find that experiencing that and trying to bring some of that back to Sydney? Because you're both teachers, and so you both have the opportunity to shape the direction of classes. I think you teach at multiple schools, and I know you are heavily involved in workshops as well, like with Kat, I think. How do you bring some of that back into your local city to try to explore those ideas more?
Yeah. I think we're in a uniquely lucky situation where we have the ability to travel, but we're also not, say, burdened with a dance school back home.
Yeah.
So I think that's a tricky thing that a lot of local teachers, school owners, a lot of community leaders really struggle with is how do you cater for the education in your community, but also run everything in the background because it's more than a one-person job, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of different jobs to have that whole thing running. So we've been lucky in a sense that we're able to teach. We don't have that overhead of having our own school. So we can bring back everything that we learn and have the time to kind of digest it, synthesize it, and then try and adapt it to our students at home, like in language that they resonate with. And we try and continually improve. So we want to be the educators in our community that gives our new students an easier time than we had when we were trying to learn. that's kind of like, that's my goal anyway as a teacher. It's like, I want to make sure the learning experience for anyone that's coming through and new is either more efficient, better, more fun, gets them in love with the dance
Yeah.
than I did.
Have you found, is there something that you guys took from somewhere in your travels and you're like, oh, we should work on this together, that you worked on and then started to teach? Is there an example that you could give of like just a simple concept or a mindset or a movement or a partnership thing that you maybe have worked on as a result of those travels that you've kind of brought back and sort of said, hey, let's try this out?
Yeah, definitely. I think we do that quite a lot. I feel like
I'll think of one example. There's like, it's just everything that we've been teaching since we've been traveling.
Almost every event we go to, where we go and we'll take all the workshops we can pretty much, and we'll always bring something back. Usually it's multiple terms worth of classes. So where we teach on a Monday night at Modern Swing in Willoughby, come and join us if you're ever in Sydney. And then also on a Tuesday at West Coast Swing Australia in Ashfield. And particularly on Mondays, where we have this term structure, we try and build our classes where we'll take a concept. So, there was something where at my swing this year, we were doing workshops with Robert Royston and Brandy, and we would take some of those concepts that they taught in an hour and we'd flesh them out more. We'd go into a little bit more detail because the level we were pitching it at was a bit lower than the classes we were taking. And so we have that opportunity over a 4-week term to go into that detail, to get people understanding, like you said, Steve, how followers can influence the dance. And so we'd spend a term talking about, okay, followers, here are ways in which you can communicate, ways in which you can do this, and let the lead know what's going to come, allow them to join in with you, but still have that creative expression.
I'm going to ask you for one example of when you say let the lead know, what would be just one example that if a follower wanted to influence, what would be something that you would say, here's what you can do? Is it just as simple as increasing the connection, or is it adding more tone through their whole frame and body and shaping it? Or is it like, what would be something that you may have taken and said, here's just one thing to try?
Yeah, I think a lot of it depends on the position you're in at the time. But like as a general principle, I'd say using expansion and delaying weight transfer, and using both of those at the same time. So both slowing down your rate of movement and expanding at the same time can help grab the attention of the leader, giving them time to think, but then also create that opportunity for the follower.
Yeah. And like we've done training in both of our roles. So Nathan's done this training as a follower as well. So we like both being able to speak to what we're expecting of both roles too. I guess that's just one way to influence the dance. And it's
I've
funny.
experienced that with you, Rez.
Yeah.
You've done that. You've done that in our dances, and it's like something's coming and it gets my attention. So I know exactly what you're referring to.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because we find ourselves coming back to those same kind of core principles of the dance, of like slow weight transfers, staying on time, those techniques that I guess some people kind of overlook or forget that are important. Like, oh no, I don't need to do the beginner's class because I know all the beginner moves. It's like, well, do you actually execute the beginner moves with the right technique to facilitate all this other cool stuff you're going to be able to do in the dance if you practice it? Every time we do have this new concept, we always try and we find ourselves coming back to those core principles again, being like, oh, this new thing can work if we all do the things that we're supposed to do underneath.
Yeah. That expansion and deceleration combined. I feel like that is, like you say, Nathan, is quite an advanced movement because it's when's the moment that you're picking to do it, how you're doing it. If your leader isn't listening, are you ready to bail because they're going to lead you out? Are you compromising yourself or the partnership? If it's not going to work, understanding your partner's level, all of those variables. One of the things that we share here regularly is just adding a second point of connection for the follower, just an easy tell to say, if you're going in for a tuck or something, to put your other hand on their rib or something like that, just to say, hey, I'm going to, and then you decelerate, just to give you that, well, the leader wasn't expecting it and they're kind of like, what's happening? And then they will wait. But there's so many different skills, I think, in that partnership. You also mentioned about influence. Both of you follow. I asked this question, so I'm going to put this out there. I asked this question of Zach and Maddie at Revitalize this year, and I said this is after the trauma of Singapore, right? So me trying to get my head, I spoke to you guys about this. I had a lesson with you, Rez, in Sydney about this very subject. Like, I don't know what's going on here, and I'm trying to figure it out. And I asked Zach about it. Maddie had heard it back, so she wasn't able to follow on the day. So Zach stood in, which is awesome. They're such a good couple. And then, and I said to Zach, how do you influence, like, as a follower? Like, what do you do? And he kind of burst out laughing. He said, I know I'm an all-star follow now. And he goes, but I actually don't influence. I just follow. I was like, oh man, like, I wasn't expecting that. And I think Maddie, I could have some of this a little bit wrong, but I think Maddie kind of said, you know what, I'm only just sort of playing with that now. And she's all-star. But what we hear for novice dancers where I live and for intermediate, like new intermediates, we're told, followers, you need to influence the dance. And it's like, there's this thing where it's like, well, you might be able to do it, but maybe your partner isn't ready for it, which is one challenge. But there's also the other side of the coin where it's like, well, Maria Lazarova always says, just learning to follow is often enough. Like, that's a big challenge in and of itself. Yeah, so it's an interesting topic.
Yeah. I'm thinking back to a lesson that I had at Swing Station with KP Rutland. This was kind of like a pivotal lesson in terms of changing my mindset as a dancer, and giving myself permission to not just follow, but actually lead in the follower role. So something something that I posed to him, like, I wanted to improve my dancing. And I said, okay, so what are higher level dancers, people that are more experienced than I, what are they doing that I need to learn in order to get to that level? And he was basically like, they talk all the time. And I was like, what does that mean? I don't understand. I'm a follower.
Yeah.
And he basically said, yeah, every champion follower that he's ever danced with talks like all the time in the dance. And he, as a leader, literally just thinks about following them. And I was like, mind blown. I was like, I don't understand this. This doesn't compute right now. And he got me to do an exercise where I, in the follower role, was determining all of the patterns that were being led. And I was like, that's wild. I want to try it. And it's like, oh, actually, I have a lot more knowledge of, or a much more power in the partnership than I ever thought I did before. And I didn't need to know anything fancy to do it. I didn't need to know techniques. I already had the tools that I needed in my own dancing to do it. I just needed to change my mind about it. So I feel like that was kind of the pivotal moment where I was like, oh, okay, as a follower, I don't just have to follow. I'm allowed to actually influence And then that kind of sparked the journey of, okay, so how do I influence outside of this, basic structure of just dictating the specific patterns? So I found a lot of like a bigger journey in creativity and technique from that lesson onwards.
This is what a can of worms we've got we've got right now. Because
When we talk about dancing.
yeah, yeah. It's so good to hear it as well, because this is these are like the things that we hear through the grapevine, and then it gets passed down and um you know whispered from one person to the other to the other to the other, and then by the time it reaches my lonely city, it's something else completely.
Yeah.
um
Yes, I think maybe that was a pivotal moment, but I could have heard it 100 times before and just I wasn't ready for it in my journey. I wasn't at that point where I could actually digest it. It was just at that time, it was what I needed to hear.
my dance teacher, like one of them, Amanda, I'll go back after an event. I'll go, "Oh, check this out," and da 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 da. I'll tell her, and she'll look at me. She, I've been telling you that for 2 years. It's like, well, maybe I was just ready to hear it now. Yeah, and so just on that, then there's the same thing where you can begin to influence and then add and like contribute to the partnership. What would you say is needed of the leader, in like what attributes should a leader have in order to make that work? So for example, if you danced with me 2 years ago, right?
Mhm.
I'm going to be kind to myself. I'm going to say 2 years ago. I'm hopefully a little different now. But let's say 2 years ago, you and I danced. I'm leading pattern after pattern after pattern, and there's no room, there's no space. And if you tried to do anything, it would be jarring. But what would be a skill that you think would be good for the leader to develop and to have, so that what you're trying to do has more success?
I think the key is just being open to it. Just knowing that, you don't, as a leader, you don't have to take 100% responsibility for this dance. Um, we want to work to more of a 50-50 contribution rather than a 100% lead, 100% follow sort of formula. Yeah, just being open to it and going through the dance with that in mind will actually probably open your eyes up to so much more opportunity that you might have been missing without having to actually upskill. You kind of like closing yourself off from that opportunity rather than opening it up. I think what I've experienced with newer leaders now and having this different mindset to learning the dance, newer leaders in like the post-COVID world, learning the dance differently, they're just innately so much more open to influence by a follower than people who learned like maybe 10, 15 years ago, just because the dance is being taught slightly differently and the followers have more of a voice, which is fantastic. Like, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it reminds me of a private lesson I took straight after COVID with Kat Branson. And I remember we were working on sugar pushes, and my goal was I had to be in the position at all times that would be most beneficial for my follower. And so I had to think about, okay, where on her foot is Reasmey in that moment? What part of the foot is she on? Does she need more space? Have I gone too far? And just honing in on that partnership, really paying attention to my follower and where they were and what they needed. So the dance became less about the pattern and what I wanted to do, and more about what I needed to do so that my partner could have a good dance. And I think that mindset shift for me had a lasting impact on how I dance.
Yeah. That's cool. You and I have spoken about Semyon's coaching before. I don't know if you remember that conversation. But I said to you, I made a comment one day that says, how did you find it? Like how did you find it? You knew I'd had coaching. You asked me about it. I told you, and then you did some work with I think both Semyon and Maria. But I said, how did you find Semyon's coaching? Because to me, he's very different to a lot of the other champions or dance professionals I've spoken to. And you thought about it for a little while. Do you remember what you told me?
I don't.
What you said is Semyon is very philosophical about the dance.
Oh,
And
that's
as
right.
soon as you said it, I burst out laughing. I said, "Yeah, he absolutely is." And that's the thing that I really like. It like that sort of helps me. But you raised something just then where you said having the awareness of where Reasmey is in this sugar push and where her weight is and all the rest. And the reason why I bring that up is because I caught up with him last week and he said, when you're dancing now, I want you to shift your awareness for a whole dance for a while. Do this for a while. Shift your awareness and your attention to your follower's center of gravity. Now, he's talked to me about awareness before, and I've covered this off in other videos. Awareness of, the music, my partner, and myself, and like trying to spread that awareness equally. But in this particular exercise, he talked about the awareness of the center of gravity, which is different to the weight on the foot, which is something else that I've also done, or the awareness of the connection. But the center of gravity, I literally just trained at it, and I was like, oh, there's like another layer to this thing again, like, because the center, I've never paid attention to the center of gravity before as a concept. But then as soon as I did, it made me realize that the energy that I needed to move my follower in certain ways was way less than I needed it to be, which gave me so much more time and space to manage my own movement and freed up my whole body. I was like, what? Yeah. So that
Yeah.
whole concept is amazing. Just the mental space of, like, we often think, oh, it's the technique of doing the activity. But this is why I think the mindset of partnership and attention and what we're actually focused on and how we're communicating and how we're aware in the dance with each other in the partnership. That's like the gold, if you like.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing how just shifting your attention to something different can cause your dancing to change so hugely.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. And every time Sammy gives me this stuff, I'm like, I don't really know what this is. I don't really know. Like, and I say to him, did you see something like in the dance? Like, what are you picking? He said, yeah, just try the exercise. So let me know how you go. And I always walk away afterwards and go, oh man, that totally changed my dancing. Like, it's just totally changed everything. Yeah, amazing. We talk about aha moments. Like, and Red said that thing about Ken having that lesson with Ken as a follower and having the ability to influence more and be a bit more proactive in following as opposed to being more reactive and just follow. Nathan, have you found anything that you've kind of had those moments in, say, specifically related to partnership or something like that, where you've gone, oh, this has actually changed my framework of what I might do or how I might lead? You did mention the 2 counts and being aware that anything could happen at any time, I guess, and not necessarily having the plan. Is there anything else that you can think of where you kind of had that moment that transformed, let's say, post-COVID, after you've been on this other journey?
I think the opportunity to travel to other countries and learn how they dance over there. Maybe they have a different system, or sometimes the way they dance is very similar to kind of what we've traditionally taught and learned in Sydney. And I think when I did first start traveling, similar to you, Steve, I had the experience of not fully understanding the connection that I was feeling and the system, I call it, that they were using in the dance. And So part of what I did was I went out and tried to get more knowledge, tried to understand as many different ways of doing the dance as I could. And that really helped me. There were many aha moments I had when I understood that, oh, that's what I'm feeling in this moment. That's what they're trying to communicate to me. I just wasn't receptive enough to understand what I was feeling.
Right.
So now when I go out and I dance with people from other countries, I'm much better equipped to have a good dance because I can adapt and respond much more quickly to the things that I'm feeling. So I think um, taking those lessons and getting those learning opportunities, you'll just get those aha moments, whether you like it or not.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of snowballs, right? Like for me, at least, it was one particular one. But ever since then, it's just been cumulative. Like every single lesson we go to, just knowing more and more. The snowball keeps getting bigger and bigger.
So if we're talking about patterns and then the deviation and the systems that we dance and things like this, I'm going to share with you an observation that I have that I've discussed with Semyon multiple times. And that is, in fact, I'm going to use my swings Advanced Jack and Jill as the example. I think David Kono won that competition with his, I can't remember the name of his partner. Is that right?
Yeah.
I think you came second, Nathan.
Yeah, that's right.
So sorry to rub that in. Just in case you didn't know, Reza's won more advanced competitions than you. So
I was happy to watch. And I got to dance with Chrono in the heat, so I was like, oh, I'm chuffed. That's pretty good.
no, yeah. One of the discussions I've had with Semyon about competitions, and this is what I saw in that event. They were first. David was first with his partner, and it was what I would call almost like a 50-50 West Coast swing and groove. Like, so there was like very obvious West Coast swing moves, like a whip or a pass or whatever. And then there was a whole lot of time just kind of grooving, but not West Coast swing at all. Like, could be walks, could be just a shuffle on the side to some elements in the music. And I've noticed that a lot of the Singaporeans in the intermediate and advanced do that a lot. There's a lot of sort of musical grooves. And then as you go into All Star and then Champion and you watch those dances, there's more recognizable West Coast swing and more complexity in the West Coast swing lead follow. But still with those groove elements, just less of them. And this is something that I've found interesting is like as a partnership is like, how do you balance, okay, we're going to learn a pattern, and that complexity of pattern might be quite difficult, that maybe you're only able to do that together as dance partners because that pattern there's a lot going on. But then when you go out on your own and you have these other dancers, for Rez, like maybe no one else leads it because it's too complex. And Nathan, if Nathan tries to lead it to somebody else, maybe it's just too ridiculous to try with other follows. Have you had that experience?
Yeah, I think so. Like there's definitely more complex patterns that I'll lead. I think a good way for me to measure whether I can lead it well is if it works on people other than Rez.
Yeah.
Now, like you say, some of them are not going to work on a beginner. Like I can't dance with someone who's done 4 weeks of West Coast swing and lead a very complex counterbalance behind the back whip. But for me, one of the ways that I measure my growth and my learning is, can I execute the things that I've been working on with other dancers of a similar level to me? And that's something I find really rewarding, is when I can dance with someone I've never danced with before, who is a similar level to me, and go out there and the more complex things that I want to lead will work 99% of the time. And the ones that don't work, that's a sign I need to go back and work on them some more. I try and put the focus on what is it I can do to make this moment succeed, rather than like, what is my partner doing wrong? And I think that's something that Reasmey and I both try and do, is try and put the focus first on ourselves and ask, what could I have done differently? And then from there, work through, okay, what could we both change to make this more successful?
It's definitely a good rule of thumb. Blame yourself before you blame anyone else, and actually do the work to discover, because often it is, often we can do other things to make things successful and improve. The reason why I asked that question is because when I watched that Kono dance, everything to me looked very simple. Like they weren't complex patterns or anything like that. It was a fantastic partnership. And I think in every other dance, there were little moments that the partnership kind of broke for some reason. Someone thought this was happening and it wasn't. And then it was like this little tiny glitch. And it was kind of like that was the difference between winning and, coming second, third, fourth, whatever. It was just these tiny moments. And in your dance, Nathan, there was like this one moment. There was this one moment where your partner thought something was happening in the music, but it didn't. And so she did something. It was fine. She could have just kept dancing, but she went, "Oh," and she pulled this face. "Oh, no, that's coming up." It's like, if you didn't do that, you guys would have won, because she kind of showed that she missed something, anyway. This is one of the things that I find challenging is like, you want to kind of like, for me, I want to improve and get better. And I use Dance Lib, and as as like the fun challenge is like with your training partner, let's do something that's challenging. Like, this is going to challenge us in areas of connection, movement, understanding, our shaping and all this sort of thing. So we push ourselves, and then it's like quite often, you're talking expert level, Maxence Nini, Jacobe Malin, type Semi Maria stuff. And it's like, yeah, this stuff isn't easy. It takes a long time just to learn it yourself. But then, taking that into at the end of beginner's class is not going to be successful. And that's where I wonder, like, has the dance changed so much that we are now doing more universally similar lead follow type partnership movements, and that the partnership is now moving towards both grooving and being able to be one with the music, even if it's not recognizable West Coast swing. Like, that's what it feels like as an observation, that they're still dancing together and they're dancing more, let's say, simple patterns at the, let's say, advanced and / moving into all-star level, as opposed to champions, where you see champions dancing, they're often doing this combination of complex movements, but it's kind of looks like West Coast swing. No?
Yeah, I don't know if I agree with that 100%. I think the element of partnership has always been there in the dance from the very beginning. Like, I love going back and watching dances from the 90s and seeing how much the dance has evolved since then. But I still see those elements of partnership just in a different form to what it looks like now. And I think that the way we connect and the way we move as a partnership has evolved, just like the dance has evolved with the music. So
Right.
when the music was faster and you had to move faster and you had to swing faster, there was these limitations as to what you could add in that amount of time. And as the music got slower and slower, we adapted the connection differently. And now there's all this extra time to add in all of the creativity that you want to add. So I think we're really just seeing people take that to its fullest extent and use that time and type of connection to showcase different elements of dancing. Yeah, I don't think it was ever missing or it's changed. It was always there. It just looks a little bit different.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's actually really good. The way that you explain it, like if I think of Jason Colosino and Katie Boyle, for example, who were exceptional, an exceptional partnership, like so well loved and unbelievably talented dancers. If you put their routine on the floor today with the US Open and you put Jakob and Emmeline next to them, or Sean and Alyssa, or Ken and Bryn, it's a it would be like, what is this? It's almost like a different division or different category of dance. Um, so yeah, and that was kind of leading into my thoughts on it, is that I think you explained it much better than I did, is where I see certain things happening where it's like it looks less uh old
Choreographed.
school, say, or choreographed, or like pattern structure is like less. There's a lot more movement and shaping within, and then it kind of flows more, I would say, rolls from one thing to another, where it's not a 6 count or an 8 count kind of pattern, if you like. The pattern is just a framework that you begin with, and then you roll on from there.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy watching the dances where I can really see people's individual expression come through in the best form. That's what I enjoy watching, and that's what I kind of look for through all levels of dancing, really. I really enjoy that and taking that from people that I watch. It's like, no, I see you and what you can bring to the table and how that enhanced the partnership and that journey throughout that song with that person. That's like the thing that keeps me like watching.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's nothing worse than when you see a couple dancing and they're not in partnership. They're individually dancing, and it's almost like they fight. It's kind of like they're fighting each other, or they have that. Everyone will have. Sometimes you'll have an idea at the same time, and it like each person does something. It's like, oh, it didn't work. I'm not talking about those instances because it's improv dance and that can happen. Um, but yeah, the times when you see, and it happens at every level as well, which is weird. That sometimes you just like see people and they're like, you guys just take it off the floor and fight outside, like meet at the bike racks. The other thing I did want to ask you, one of my other questions is you said, we talked about routines and how that kind of pushed you, and you're talking about like having that mindset of like keeping it, this is just the dance, right? But then it's like, okay, well, there's growth, and then there's like working together, figuring things out, drilling things 100 times because you've got to work on getting this to whatever level. Um, One of the things in a partnership, like, or whether your dance partners, training partners, or regular, social partners at your local dance school, is if you are giving feedback to each other, what have you found if you had to say a couple of do's? We suggest do it like this, but maybe a couple of don'ts, like, yeah, let's not like do it in this way because that might be taken the wrong way or upsetting. Is there anything that you could share with us in terms of how you might deliver feedback?
Yeah, I think, well, firstly, we try not to give feedback to each other and to other people on the social dance floor. Um, that's something we try and stay away from
Big no.
when
That
we're
should
at
be
social.
that should be rule number one. Yeah.
Yeah, when we're at social dancing, we're there to dance, we're there to have fun. Um, and then when we are training, whether that's giving students private lessons, or Reasmey and I in the studio working on routines or our own social dancing, in that environment, yeah, we're very careful about the feedback we give and how we give that. We try and make it objective, and try not to blame one another. To use language like "I feel" or "it seems to me that I could do blah 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 differently."
Yeah, how can I change something to make this work better? not you did this wrong or you did that wrong or what are you doing, or that kind of negative language. Rephrasing that as to, we know there's an issue here. How can we both problem solve to overcome this issue together? So, and often it comes back to it's never always the other person. It's pretty much always us that needs to change something ourselves, make it work better. Where we don't or are unable to communicate that well, we outsource. So we get a mediator, a coach, a teacher, somebody outside of just us to help us get through that process. Because we don't know everything. We know we don't know everything. We need help. So we go externally for that help. And that really pushes us to get past that and get problem solving a lot quicker.
I feel like just on that, I think with one of your routines, someone mentioned like you work with Kat to, like, I think you maybe work with a few people or something to give you feedback on routines. But I think Kat Branson was probably one of those people that helped you with certain elements or something. Is that where you might use someone like her who is a champion, is so many years of experience to kind of like step in and say, how do we like make this work and what can we do differently?
Yeah. I remember at Revitalize, somebody asked a question in a forum about, for routines, what do you recommend people do if they want to do routines? And Brandy was like, you need 3 different coaches. You need a performance coach, you need a choreography coach, and some other coach that I can't even remember. And then I was like, oh, that's a lot of coaches. We only have one, but she does all of those jobs for us.
Yeah. And she's exceptional.
Yes,
Yeah, she is.
absolutely. She's helped us so much with our dancing, not just our dancing and routines, but our teaching as well. So she's coached us in all of those things.
There's a common thread with her. Everyone that she works with tends to like just elevate their dancing very quickly. She's very good. I've had one private lesson with Kat, and the thing that always struck me was how quickly she diagnosed what was going on, how she knew how to fix it, and then how she challenged me to think about it so that I could figure it out. And then she would give me the instruction along the way because she wanted me to think about what's happening. And she's very, very good.
Yeah, though she's got a lot of years of experience, so she's really honed those skills over that time. And yeah, that's why we keep going back to her.
Yeah, cool. Guys, we are right on time. I did want to say a massive thank you. I'm going to leave you with one more question. But what is it that motivates you to continue to grow? Like, what's the driving thing? Is it just the love of the dance?
Yeah, absolutely. We love the dance. But for me, I also enjoy the learning and the growth that I get to see in myself. As a person, I love learning new things. And there's just so much to learn in West Coast Swing. Like I mentioned before, that journey of learning the different ways that people do this dance. I get a lot of joy from dancing with all sorts of different people from all sorts of different walks of life. Getting to go to class every week, getting to teach this dance and seeing new people find joy in it also motivates me to keep doing it, to keep pushing myself.
Yeah. Awesome.
I agree. I've been dancing, I guess, most of my life, and I think I find the most satisfaction out of partner dancing because of that social aspect. Just having that sense of community and belonging is, I think, why most people stay in the dance is that connection rather than necessarily the dance itself. But having said that, I do enjoy this newer part of our journey, which is the educational part. And yeah, figuring out when we learn things and how we learn it and how do we translate that to help everyone else learn what we know, because we want everyone to know what we know. So we can have, amazing dancers across the board. And we find a lot of joy in the dance. So it makes sense to share it.
Yeah, and I think the other thing is the music. We're lucky in West Coast Swing to dance to such diverse music. And for me, growing up playing piano and being in many different bands, I love music, and that opportunity to express yourself to music with a partner and do that together is really, really fun.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest part. I feel like all of us should be creators. And so, creating something to something else that someone created and like adding something is like, that's what gets me on the dance floor. It's like, oh, I just want to move to this. It's so cool. And then you're creating that moment. I often think like, I had a dance the other day and I was like, "Ah, damn it, I wish I got that dance on video because I don't remember what happened, but that was freaking awesome. Like it was so good. And
Right? Like that's why we keep doing it, because we want more experiences like that.
yeah. And I think I've felt this a few times. I've mentioned this before, but I often teach these concepts of, I call it dancing as one. So it's like where it's not you individually in the dance and you have these moments, and I think the first couple of times you experience it, it's kind of like, oh man, we were totally together in sync with the music for this whatever moment. And then I've had them where I've had full dances like that from start to finish, and then it's like, oh, like you just want those little moments because they're cool, but the
Those
longer they go and the more they happen and the more you develop, it's like, oh man, that was so good. Like it's just such a unique feeling.
It's that dance fix. We always are searching for the next fix.
Yeah, pretty much. Guys, that's been awesome. Thanks. You've answered so many questions, and I really appreciate your time today. I know the Sydney community loves you guys. I really enjoyed coming and like having a couple of lessons with you, and even being able to sit at the pub and talk about things that had happened, and Reasmey telling me that Maxon's told you just to fall. I don't know if you remember that.
I'll walk you through that one.
Yeah. Well, I think once I get to show you the collection method, that'll click. We can both marry that up and like go, oh, this is what he meant.
I look forward to it.
Yeah. Hopefully I'll see you guys next year in Sydney sometime. And until then, keep doing what you're doing, guys, because you guys are awesome.
Yeah, likewise.
Thanks, Steve, and thanks for this opportunity, and all the best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
See you.
guys.